Okay, so why are we talking about child labor? It's 2023, not 1923 or 1823. So, what is going on? So, basically, the background of all of this is that we have seen a significant increase in child labor, law violations over the last couple of years. So, child labor is covered by the Fair Labor Standards Act, which was passed around the New Deal era. Yes, that was the last time that we significantly, at a federal level, regulated child labor. And it outlaws oppressive child labor with exemptions for agriculture and stuff like that. Basically, these federal protections limit, working hours. So minors on a federal level who are 14 or 15 years old can only work up to 3 hours outside of work on school days. And on days when school's not in session, they can work 8 hours with some longer hours for older people. And then it also imposes civil fines for violation of these laws. So there's a maximum civil monetary penalty of about $15,000 per child. And then states have the ability to add regulations on top of, and additional protections on top of the Fair Labor Standards Act. So, even though this is pretty low level protections, this is basically just governing amount of time you can work, how old you have to be to start working, what kinds of jobs are hazardous and oppressive. Even though these minimal standards are kind of in place, we have seen a significant increase over the last few years in violations of the Fair Labor Standards Act. So we're talking huge. So since 2015, we've seen a 238% increase in violations, according to the Department of Labor. Now, 2015 was a low point in terms of total violations, but we're talking about in 2022, 3,876 violations of child labor laws.
Yeah, and just between the years of the fiscal year 2022 and 2021, there was an increase in violations by 37%. And there have been some pretty jarring examples.
Yes.
For those of you that study history, one of the biggest industries that really needed to be regulated, not just because of child labor, just because of conditions in general, was the meatpacking industry. And there was an investigation into the Packers Sanitation Services Incorporated by the Department of Labor, and they found that at least 102 children between the ages of 13 and 17 were working in hazardous occupations and had them working with the meatpacking industry, the meatpacking plants, and they had them working overnight shifts at 13 different meat packing facilities in 8 states across the country.
Yeah.
All right. 13 to 17-year-olds. There was another investigation into the Hyundai Kia supply chain in Alabama that also found that they were employing people as young as 14 in their factories.
Yeah. It's crazy. And so typically we would think of the kinds of jobs being done by minors in the 21st century as working in fast food restaurants or in grocery stores or things like that. And
some ice cream place.
Yeah, exactly. And there are violations of child labor laws going on in these facilities. So we're talking about working too late into the night, and these limitations are often at the state level. So working too late, which is hazardous because if you're tired and driving home, children or teenagers are already at increased risks of car accidents and fatalities and things like that. There have been, violations of them working too many hours, for example. But at the same time, even though these are, perhaps less severe cases, to Nathan's point, we're also seeing an increase in high risk jobs and injuries and violations in these industries where children just aren't allowed to be working in the first place. And adolescents are almost twice as likely as adults to get injured at work, which makes these instances particularly heinous violations that companies are just willing to take the risk on, even though it costs them
Yeah.
$15,000 per child violation.
Yeah. So this has been a major problem.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The going over the established child labor laws and violating the established rights has led to multiple investigations that have been occurring.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, state level Republicans have the solution. Loosen the laws.
Yeah, having too many child labor law violations. Well, that's okay. We'll just reduce the laws and reduce the protections.
That's how you prevent it. That's how you
Perfect.
prevent it. And not only that, not only loosening the laws so that the standards that are set in place are lessened. In many cases, it's straight up shielding industries
Yes.
from liability
Yeah.
if they hire somebody who is underage.
Or even if they get injured.
Yeah, or even if they get injured. Making it easier for kids to lie about their age, or for parents to lie about their kids' age, and then shielding them from protections if they happen to hire somebody who is not of the right age to work. That's important to note, because when you see the numbers of ages as low as 16 can do this terrible job, or as low as 14 can do this terrible job, you also have to keep in mind that even those standards that these laws are set are not necessarily the only age that will be affected by these laws.
Yeah,
because they're also built into these laws are making it easier for people, for employers, for parents to violate the very laws, minimal amount of protections that these laws propose in the first place.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So over the last 2 years, according to a report from the Economic Policy Institute, at least 14 states have enacted or proposed laws to roll back protections for children in work scenarios. So in rolling back child labor protections. And again, most typically, these are extending hours, but they're also lifting restrictions on hazardous work. Or lowering the age at which kids can work in restaurants that serve alcohol. Now, I will say some of these states, at least currently, have legislatures that are controlled by Democrats. So I would say while the vast majority of these states have legislatures controlled by Republicans, there's definitely a mix here, because the justification is largely to address the quote unquote labor shortage that we're facing, specifically for the kinds of jobs that children most often do, which is, again, often the least desirable, lowest paid work. That's what kids end up doing.
And I just like to point out, when you spend some time thinking about the implications of that, you realize just how cartoonishly fucking evil that is.
Yes.
Because the reason why there is a labor shortage is because during the pandemic, people got a taste of what not entirely centering themselves around work might look like. And that made it so that when they were coming back to work, businesses had to be more competitive in terms of trying to appeal to multiple different workers. They had to increase their pay. They had to have better standards. They had to have better benefits, which is a good thing. And now, in order to try to offshoot that, in order to try to offshoot the few benefits of the pandemic, the very few benefits of the pandemic, the solution is to try to loosen child labor laws.
Yes. Yeah.
What the actual fuck?
Totally. Yeah.
You don't want to make standards better. You don't want to make pay better. You don't want to make conditions better. So instead, throw children at the problem.
Yeah,
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yep. And not only is it let's employ children to do the jobs that adults won't do, let's ask the question, what kinds of kids end up in these jobs?
Yeah.
They're the exact same kinds of kids from a socioeconomic and background perspective as the adults that would end up in these jobs. People with no other options. So, for example, in the meat packers example that you mentioned, Nathan, many of the children working in these facilities were unaccompanied minors who had immigrated to the United States and were placed with sponsors while their asylum claims were being processed. So these are people that are trying to like send money home to their families, or they are, living in situations that maybe aren't great and they need to make money to like, or they're being taken advantage of. And so with the influx of unaccompanied minors through our Health and Human Services system, many of the kids that are flowing into these jobs are some of these least well-off folks and these unaccompanied minors, which is again just like ridiculously usury to try to take advantage of these people with no other options in order to reduce the cost of labor in sometimes hazardous facilities.
Yeah.
And to your point, like, one of the more heinous laws is actually coming out of Iowa, which is allowing kids as young as 14 to work in industrial laundries, and with approval from a state agency, allows the kids to work, the 16-year-olds or older, to work in roofing, excavation, demolition, the operation of power-driven machinery, and other like dangerous industries and occupations. Remember, adolescents are twice as likely to get injured on the job as adults in all of these really dangerous jobs.
And that bill is one of those examples of basically a bill that is written to make it easy to violate the bill.
Yes.
Because it also includes removing rules that prevent parents from lying about their kids' age in order to procure employment.
Yep.
It eliminates the labor commissioners, and this is according to a breakdown from the Economic Policy Institute. It eliminates the labor commissioner's authority to require work permits for children in some occupations, which again, the reason why they have to get those work permits is to make sure that they satisfy the standards that are put in place in the first place.
Yeah. And to be able to track them so that you can actually know which industries are employing kids, so you can pay attention. Arkansas is doing a similar thing where they're rolling back the requirement to have work permits, which is all it does. It's literally a one-page thing. You fill out your information. Like, all it does is create a paper trail so you can more easily track and protect people from violations. So it's just making it easier to violate the law.
Yeah. And it provides employer immunity from legal claims arising from industry, illness, or death of a child.
Yes, seriously. Minnesota has put in place a similar law to that. Reed Mackey, who's the director of child labor advocacy at the National Consumers League and the coordinator of the Child Labor Coalition, when talking about this particular aspect of these laws, put it really well. He said, "It's as if they know that kids are going to get hurt."
Yeah,
because they
They want to make sure that they're protecting the businesses.
Yeah, it's just mind blowing.
Mustache twirling evil.
Yes.
And one of the things that I also think is really interesting about this is that many states are also approving sub-minimum wages for minors.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, in Nebraska, voters recently approved a ballot measure to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2026, which good, great.
Yeah.
However, the way that is going to work for minors, so basically, the bill proposes that 14 to 17-year-olds would be paid $9, which would gradually increase to $10 by 2026.
Yep.
So basically, $5 less than the minimum wage. One state senator, Tom Bryce, I believe that's how you say his name, whatever. He defended it by saying, quote, "We shouldn't be making it harder for employers to hire young folks."
Yes.
Yes, we fucking should.
Yes, I think
yes, we fucking should.
That is,
the reason why I find that so telling is because we hear time and time again an argument against raising the minimum wage is, oh, well, the purpose of the minimum wage was never to pay a living wage. It was to have a certain amount of money for like high schoolers and teenagers for their first job. That's what the minimum wage is for. which is bullshit. That's a bullshit argument, because when FDR originally created the minimum wage as part of his New Deal programs, he specifically said the purpose of this minimum wage is to make sure people are making a living wage. He said no business that relies on the paying of less than a living wage in order to operate deserves to exist. So that argument is bullshit to begin with. And right here, they're telling you that it's bullshit because they're even putting another minimum wage, a sub-minimum wage, for teenagers.
Yes.
Which that's the whole reason why they've been arguing against raising it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, oh, we'll raise the minimum wage, but we'll get around it by reducing protections for child labor, allowing children to flood the labor market more, and then suppress wages.
The original point of the minimum wage wasn't to fucking give a certain amount of money for high schoolers and for teenagers, because we're giving them a different minimum wage.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's such a strange argument. Like, the idea that teenagers, so I get maybe the idea that some like teenagers are maybe not going to be as good at the jobs and do as good of a job as an adult. So like maybe that's the argument for trying to pay them less. But you don't hire those people. Like, those are not people you want working for you.
Yeah.
You have to, like, if they're going to be bad at their job, don't hire them. Like, that's not actually, what we're going for. And the thing about teenagers, especially like kids in school, is that they're either having a job for like mainly one of two reasons. One, they need money to help support their family, which is an argument that conservatives will sometimes make, that like we have to, maybe we have to reduce protections for school-age kids so that they can bring home money to their family. And we'll get to
Great.
Why
give them a living wage, though.
That's similarly cartoonishly evil. But exactly, that means that they need a living wage even more, because they shouldn't be spending all their time working. So having a higher wage per hour is actually more important for them. Another reason why kids and teenagers will get jobs is have a little money, have a little extra spending money, be able to get job experience, all of the stuff that conservatives are talking about all the time, that young people need to get work ethic and start their jobs and all that stuff. But the problem is that, especially as a teenager, time that you spend at a job can have a pretty big opportunity cost, right? It's time that you might not be spending, studying for the SATs or like doing extracurriculars that can look good on college applications. Like, there can be significant opportunity costs to going and working, which means that we should pay a higher amount, at least minimum wage, because these are kids that should be spending their time doing other things. And so the time they spend working is time that we should compensate them for fairly. Like, and the other thing about that argument, so I saw a few people like talking about like, oh, kids just don't want to work anymore, and that's why we need to reduce protections for child labor. Like there was one industry lobbyist I was reading about,
school.
that attempted to justify changes by saying there's been a decline in the labor force participation rate among 16 to 24-year-olds over the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
That's not something that gets solved by reducing protections for kids that are in the labor force.
Yeah.
Right? Like if the claim is that that's a problem on the jobs availability side, like we just don't have enough jobs available for kids, then that's a bad claim. We don't want those kids to do those jobs. But if the claim is that kids should be getting jobs more, then all you're doing by extending working hours for kids or allowing them to work later is enabling people that are in the workforce to have harder, more strenuous, like more problematic jobs. It's not helping.
Yeah. Yeah. And on top of all that, during those years, one of the reasons why you see a large unemployment rate is because like youth are using that time to invest in their future, to invest in a more long-term career, to finish school, to go through college, or to go to graduate school. That's why they're not working at jobs. They're trying to invest in their future. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that you can't invest in your future by having a job during those times. I mean, Michael, you had a job when you were
absolutely
when you were a teenager.
Yeah, as I've gone through all of these laws and been reading about this, I think that's I think it's an interesting point. I got a job as soon as I was able to get one. As soon as someone would hire me, I wanted a job, and I wanted it because I liked the idea of having a job. I liked the idea of having some extra money. I thought it would be an exciting and cool experience, and it totally was all of those things.
Yeah.
And I didn't work at a place that violated the labor standards in my state. And I did find it beneficial for me, for sure. And none of that stuff is off the table when you have basic protections for kids. But my job at a restaurant is not the job we're talking about. And that's that's the two-faced, like straw man side of the argument, is that the people that are passing this legislation are pretending like, oh, well, we just don't have jobs available for youngsters, and the kids, they're spending too much time on their phones. Literally one spokesperson for the Ohio Restaurant Association testifying on behalf of Ohio's reduction of protections for kids, literally cited that, oh, this will reduce screen time. And, kids need an opportunity to work. It's important. And all of that stuff can be true while not putting kids in the factory line or cleaning dangerous equipment. Those just aren't the jobs that kids are supposed to be doing. And those are the jobs that are being added to the list of options for kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I truly do believe that having a job as a teenager can be an extremely rewarding experience. I never had I didn't have an official job as a teenager, but when I was really young, actually when I was 7 years old, I started this dog business where friends of ours would pay me to take care of their dogs while they were on vacation.
Yeah.
And it was a business as a kid. So I wasn't making a ton of money doing it, but for me, I was making a lot of money because I was 7.
Yeah.
And that was super fulfilling. I loved being able to do something, to work and to get paid for it. That can be a very rewarding experience. And the more that these laws strip away protections, making it easy for what should be a rewarding experience, a rewarding part of growing up, to be an exploitive experience.
Yes. Yeah.
The more you undermine your entire arguments surrounding the entire, surrounding the, your justifications for these laws in the first place.
Yes.
Because the justifications that we keep seeing is, well, it's good for them to learn a good work ethic. Okay. Yes. Then make sure they have a good experience.
Yeah.
All right? It's not that difficult.
No, we have to break their souls early, Nathan.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of those cases where right now there is so much anger in this country about our economic system. There is so much anger towards capitalism. And, I'm a capitalist. All right. I still consider myself a capitalist, but there is a lot of justified anger against capitalism right now. Anger against exploitation, anger against profit-based healthcare, anger against paying less than a living wage, anger against income inequality. And we're at the point where capitalism really, really needs to justify its own existence. And loosening child labor laws ain't going to do that.